Coming up on Nightcast, the latest on historic peace talks in Madrid with local reaction. An alcohol-related crash kills 2 teens and injures 4 others.
And in weather, there's snow in portions of western New York, and we will stay cold.
In sports, plenty of action from Week 10 in the NFL.
Nightcast is next.
TV 10 is right at home with you.
This is 10 Eyewitness News Nightcast with Lori Stevens. Weather Plus with Greg Playford. Dan Murphy with sports. And the 10 Eyewitness News team.
Good evening. An historic weekend in Madrid as Israel holds one-on-one talks with the Jordanian-Palestinian delegation and with Lebanon and Syria. But as ABC's Jim Laurie reports, it took some extra convincing to get Syria to agree to meet.
At times by Egyptians and even Saudis shuttling among 3 Madrid hotels, exerting maximum diplomatic pressure. Finally, Syria was persuaded to sit down with Israel for their first ever face-to-face talks. The historic breakthrough clearly a relief to Secretary Baker, the principal peace broker.
Amidst all of the procedural wrangling, it's important, I think, not to lose sight of the breakthrough represented by the start of direct bilateral negotiations.
Syrian reluctance to meet stemmed from Israel's demand to switch the location of these talks to the Middle East, which the Israelis believe would give them the recognition they have long sought.
Israel insists on moving the venue of the talks into the region and confining these talks to this question alone. This is not an acceptable position.
The first ever separate talks between the Israelis and a joint Palestinian-Jordanian delegation had smoother sailing today. The negotiations lasted nearly 5 hours and ended with a promise to meet again soon at a still undetermined location.
The talks were held in good business-like atmosphere.
Israel's negotiator Eliakim Rubinstein said future talks would focus on Palestinian interim self-government. And while the Palestinian team leader reserved the right to focus on other issues too, the Israelis shook hands for the first time in public with Jordanian and Palestinian leaders.
Talks between Syria and Israel broke off a short time ago. The head of the Israeli delegation claims the Syrians rejected all of Israel's ideas. The Syrians were not available for comment. Teenagers at the Albany Jewish Community Center danced the night away tonight, but happenings across the world are never too far off these days. Some of the teens shared with me their feelings on the peace process and what's at stake.
You're going to talk and things are going to happen, but I don't think anything positive is going to come out of it for Israel. I don't think anything more that we already have and we actually might lose.
I don't think anything positive is going to come out for each side, because when you're sitting down a group of nations that can't even decide on the next place to have a meeting, then how are you supposed to discuss such issues as peace and land and stuff like that?
I think that if they're willing to sit down, especially countries like Syria, if they're willing to really take serious the peace, then maybe, hopefully, something will be accomplished, what Israel's been waiting for so long.
It's a step in the right direction. I mean, maybe nothing will come out of it, but at least we're all sitting down. All the nations are sitting down and discussing the situation.
I think the idea of discussing, peace is very good, but I don't think either side should have to give up land to have peace. There are other ways of achieving it.
All are convinced Israel should not trade land for peace. Tragedy struck in Saratoga County this weekend. 2 teenagers are dead and 4 injured after their car missed a corner late last night. Police say the driver had been drinking when the car crashed on Lake Desolation Road in the northwestern part of the county. Scott Yount reports.
The car was so bad you couldn't really tell which was front, which was back, and I got...
Tom Merrills and his wife Louise have seen lots of accidents on Lake Desolation Road near their Saratoga County home, but none quite like the one that killed 2 teens and injured 4 last night.
It's a mountain road, and it's got some bad turns in it and some hills, and you just have to know the mountain and just be careful.
Scattered debris tells the tale. Teenagers out for a night of fun, alcohol, a missed curve, and disaster. The 6 teens, all members of the Saratoga varsity football team, crashed through the trees. The car then caught fire.
I was looking and I seen one kid, he was covered with blood, and then I had to call 911, and I went down to the bar and got some help, and we come up, and it wasn't good.
Emergency crews on the scene did all they could, but it was too late for two boys in the back seat. According to investigators, they weren't wearing seat belts. The driver of the car, 16-year-old Jesse Briner, was injured slightly, treated and released. He is charged with DWI, failure to keep right, and driving after hours on a junior operator's license. Dead are David Brommer and Damon Jones. Both were 16 and died of massive head and chest injuries. Injured were Matthew Gibney, 17, Godfrey Louisa, and Matthew Rhodes, both 16. Today, the car, a late model Pontiac, sits at a scrapyard, only a few miles from the crash site. Scott Yunt, 10 Eyewitness News, Nightcast.
The driver and Gibney, one of the three passengers injured, were treated at Saratoga County and released. Louisa is in stable condition and Rhodes is in fair condition. No word yet on whether all six were drinking. The recent string of murders and shooting sprees across the nation and in our area increased this weekend. Police say an apparently disgruntled former employee shot and killed the co-owner of a diner in Kingston yesterday. Authorities have charged 37-year-old Thomas Salier with killing 50-year-old Cliff Giorgio of Kingston. The victim was co-owner of the Dietz Stadium Diner, where Salier had worked as a dishwasher until he was fired this year. Salier was homeless and is now in the Ulster County Jail. The polite mugger is back in police custody tonight, facing additional charges. Several police agencies joined in the search for 33-year-old David Pickering after he allegedly hit a guard over the head and ran out of Memorial Hospital yesterday. He was nabbed not by helicopters or the K-9 team, but by a phone call from an Arbor Hill resident who spotted him hiding behind 274 3rd Street.
We got a lot of phone tips from the residents of Arbor Hill, and we wish to commend them on this. They were very, very cooperative with us. The possible sightings of the subject, they were constantly calling, and it proved out in the end that it was a phone tip that allowed us to get to him.
Pickering was caught at about 1:30 this morning and now faces escape and assault charges. He was originally jailed for admitting to 5 armed robberies this summer and earned the nickname Polite Mugger because he apparently apologized to his victims. Coming up on Nightcast, Americans blame Congress more than the president for the bad economy. The results of a new poll when we return. Also ahead, accusations of forgery in a local council race. Stay here.
Tonight's 10 Eyewitness News is brought to you by your Super Capital District Chrysler Plymouth dealers, the dealers with the advantage.
A new ABC News Washington Post poll illustrates the common belief that Americans today care more about the economy than anything else. Marjorie Eilertson has the latest numbers, including a look at how the economy is affecting the political scene.
When asked to name the biggest problem facing the country, 42% of Americans polled pointed to economic issues, notably unemployment. Social issues, especially poverty and crime, came in a close second, and foreign issues a distant third. The ABC poll shows 87% of Americans surveyed believe the economy is in bad shape. And President Bush's job approval rating has fallen from its Gulf War high of 90% to below 60%, while confidence in the administration as a whole has tumbled to just 34%. ABC News found 71% of the people polled think the country is on the wrong track. But the ABC poll also showed 63% of those surveyed blame the democratically controlled Congress for the bad economy, while 34% blame the president. And the poll shows voters still prefer President Bush over Governor Mario Cuomo by 58 to 30%. The poll also shows Mr. Bush winning 51 to 33% over any of the Democrats who have already announced they're running for president. Marjorie Eilertson, 10 Eyewitness News, Nightcast.
Locally, election campaigns are heating up throughout the capital region. In fact, one reached a boiling point in the Lansingburg section of Troy today. Incumbent Republican Councilman Brian Sandvidge is outraged. He claims several 1st District residents have received campaign material about his opponent with his name hand-printed on it, endorsing her. He believes Kathy Conroy or other members of the Democratic Party may have forged his name.
Tomorrow morning, bringing that letter down to, or that voter solicitation card down to the district attorney's office to file a complaint.
I have absolutely no idea what the man is talking about. It's ludicrous to me that I would ever in a million years ask him to endorse me for any office whatsoever in the United States of America. You know, an independent party.
Catherine Conroy says she has no idea where the materials came from. Quick reminder to get your election results right here on Tuesday, shortly after the polls close at 9. John McLaughlin, the area's senior political reporter, will be covering the Albany County executive race, and Jim Coyne, the outgoing county executive, will join TV10 to give his analysis as well. We'll also be covering numerous other local races in the entire TV10 area, so please join us Tuesday night. And if I may continue to offer you some advice, get your sweaters and warm clothes out, because meteorologist Greg Playford says a cold week is ahead. His forecast is next. Greg Playford is here with weather, and Greg, I say that a lot of people are anxious for the cold weather because a change of wardrobe. You know, you can break out all the winter clothing and, you feel like you've got a new wardrobe.
I think so. I think it's better to get right into the cold weather, especially now that it's supposed to be here, rather than going back and forth in 50s and 30s one week and then 60s and 70s the next week. A lot of people get sick that way. The flu really gets going.
You're right.
So it's supposed to get
consider it a
cold.
Blessing, right?
Sure. How about a white Christmas and then we go right into spring? That's my idea.
That would please many people.
Sure. That would keep a lot of people happy, but that won't happen. We may get a chance to see our first snow in the area coming in on Wednesday, but I don't think it'll be of any consequence, but we'll take a look at that. Okay, we do have some colder air coming our way, Lori. Let's look at the high temperature and the low temperature for today, 53 and 37. Records of 75 and 20. Still mostly clear outside at 11 o'clock on this Sunday evening. 34 degrees, relative humidity at 61%. The barometric pressure is on the rise. The winds are out of the northwest, 7 miles per hour, and dry, so no precipitation to report today. On the satellite picture this evening, we have some high clouds around the Capital District, but there are some thicker clouds the farther south you go. There's a system along the Virginia coastline that's starting to drift up to the northeast. What it may do is keep the clouds in portions of eastern New England and maybe some showers along the Boston area later on tonight and during the day tomorrow. But of more consequence in New York State is the band of clouds that you see running all the way down Lake Erie and in Lake Ontario. Put the temperatures in for you, and yes, this is the first evening we've been able to report some snowfall amounts around New York State. Basically, the lake effect snow machine again is going. Downwinds of Lakes Erie and Lake Ontario, 5 inches of snow. They're shoveling it out in West Seneca, New York, 3 inches in Tonawanda, north of Buffalo, and 2 inches on the ground in Buffalo itself. What happens, again, those cold winds blowing over the lake, picks up the moisture and dumps heavy amounts of snow downwinds of the Great Lakes, and it looks like this snowfall is going to continue for the next 24 hours or so because of that very strong storm that's in the atmosphere. And you can see the circulation of the storm as it moves up into Canada, pulling that cold air and the cloudiness over the Great Lakes and causing those lake effect snows in portions of western New York. Here's that coastal low that's moving up, should stay to our east. We should clear out later on tonight, and that cold air is going to be with us for much of the upcoming week. Here's my forecast for the remainder of this evening. A few clouds around here, but especially to the south of the Capital District, and then becoming mostly clear. Look for lows 23 to 28. For Monday, mostly sunny, but continued cold. There may be some clouds in the early part of the day, 40 to 45. For Monday night, clear and cold, upper to mid-teens. And for Tuesday, lots of sunshine, but still cold, mid to upper 30s. Southern Vermont and the Berkshires, clear this evening, lows in the mid to low 20s. And for tomorrow, mostly sunny, highs near 45. The long-range outlook will give us some clouds coming in on Wednesday with a chance of some snow from an Alberta clipper and cooler air coming in for the remainder of the week. So we have temperatures below normal coming up this week.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Here's a brief look at some of the other news of this Sunday. Schenectady police are looking for the suspect who robbed and bound an elderly woman in her home in the Bellevue section this morning. The woman suffered minor injuries. Yet another case of Halloween candy tampering, this time in Clifton Park. A young girl discovered a needle in a piece of candy called Dots by Tootsie. Police are investigating. And All My Children's Walt Willey was supposed to appear at Colony Center today, but due to an illness, the actor who plays Jackson Montgomery had to reschedule for some time during the holiday season. Coming up in sports, this was the wildest Sunday so far this season in the NFL, according to Murph, with overtime heroics and miracle pass plays. Murph with all the scores and highlights, and the Patroons swing a trade that should clear up a logjam. Sports is straight ahead. Murph's here with sports, and I, for one, am looking forward to this. Quite a wild Sunday in the NFL.
It was crazy. Each week you think it's not going to get any crazier than that, and they top themselves. And I guess that's what people love about the NFL. Buffalo Bills are used to beating teams badly when they play host at Rich Stadium. The New England Patriots have shown the ability to play close games this season, but lose most of them. Today in Western New York, well, something had to give. Let's go to Rich Stadium. The Bills did their best to keep the Pats in this one, but when Thurman Thomas broke this run late in the game, Buffalo looked like they were ahead to stay, but here come the Pats. Leonard Russell with a short run, and New England's only 5 back. Hugh Millen with a chance to make amends from last week's blunder. Not his fault there, but McMurtry tips the pass. It's picked off by Talley, and the Bills survive with a 22-17 win. Elsewhere in the AFC tonight in Denver, the Broncos throwing a shoe against the Steelers early. Then John Elway goes in for the touchdown, gives the Broncos the lead. Look at this final play of the game. Steelers with a chance to tie the game. Eric Green can't hold the pass right in his hands. Denver goes on to win 20-13. The Broncos improve to 7-2 on the season. In the NFC, the Giants not only need to win the majority of their remaining games, including tomorrow night against the Eagles, but they'll need some help to get a wild card spot. 2 other teams with wild card aspirations, the 49ers and Falcons, meeting today in Atlanta. Let's go to Fulton County Stadium. It was hammer time. Falcons up 10-7 late in the game. Steve Bono in for an injured Steve Young hits John Taylor. 14-10 Niners. Well, look at this. Less than 10 seconds to go. Billy Joe Tolliver in for an injured Chris Miller with a Hail Mary pass that's answered by Michael Haynes. Falcons win 17-14. Cowboys also playing like a playoff team these days. Playing the Cards today. Emmitt Smith with a big day. 3 touchdowns, including this up and over effort. Smith TD runs of 3, 1, and 3 yards. Doesn't matter how far out as long as he gets in. Cowboys now 6-3 off the 27-7 victory. But the wildest games today came with the 2 conferences going head-to-head at the Meadowlands. The Jets thinking playoffs, hosting the Packers. Let's go to Giants Stadium. Final play of the first half. Ken O'Brien with Hail Mary number 2 on the day. It's deflected a couple of times and caught by Chris Burkett. Jets lead 13-6 at the intermission. Jets up 7. Mike Tomczak will head Ed West. 13-13 game goes into overtime, tied at 16. And the old man, Pat Leahy, with the field goal that wins it for the Jets, 19-16. And in D.C., what may have been a Super Bowl preview, the Redskins hosting the Oilers. This was a defensive 6-6 struggle until Ernest Biner breaks this nice TD run. 13-6 Skins late in the fourth quarter. Lorenzo White answers. 13-13, we go to OT. Warren Moon, bad pass intercepted by Darryl Green, and Chip Lohmiller comes in for the chip shot, and Washington moves to 9-0, winning 16-13. NFL scoreboard, the Bengals get their first victory of the season at the expense of the Browns. Miami makes the Colts 0-9 on the season. Bears alone atop the NFC Central. Saints are now 8-1. Vikings get their 5th victory, and tomorrow night the Eagles will beat the Giants. Since the beginning of training camp, the Albany Patroons have had a glut of point guard position players. Today, well, they were veteran Kevin Williams, Johnny Johnson, and rookie Mark Brown. Tonight they have but 2. The Pats solving their problem, trading Williams to Yakima for the rights to center Dave Hoffman, who is currently playing in the NBA. Now, the move just may open the door for Brown, the former Siena standout, to secure a starting spot with the Pats. Albany opens their season Friday night at the Nick against Sioux Falls. After a PGA season full of dramatic tournaments, well, many of those decided in sudden death, it was only appropriate that the year's final event, the Tour Championship, needed overtime to decide a winner today. We go to Pinehurst, North Carolina, hole number 15. Craig Stadler misses the gimme, drops into a tie with Russ Cochran. They do go to sudden death. Hole number 2, Cochran with the tee shot. He didn't like it, and here's why. It comes up way short. Setting up the Walrus for the putts, which he hits. Craig Stadler wins the Tour Championship. Richest purse of the year, $360,000 first prize. Stadler's first Tour win since 1984. Tonight, the NHL, a Norris Division battle between Chicago and Minnesota. Blackhawks on the power play. Steve Larmer with the goal, and later off the scramble, Chris Chelios with the backhander. Right now, the Blackhawks lead this game 4-3. They have moved to the 3rd period. NHL scoreboard. Vancouver all over Edmonton, 7-2. As we go to the NHL board, and Winnipeg and St. Louis skated to a 3-3 overtime tie. American Hockey League scoreboard, Adirondack Red Wings wrap up their maritime road trip, losing to St. John's 5-1. Wings, pretty good trip, though. 2 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. And back on solid ground to the Big Apple, the running of the New York City Marathon, and they were out in force again. Just an amazing scene across the bridges in the 5 boroughs of New York. Here's the men's winner, Salvador Garcia, 2 hours, 9 minutes, 27 seconds. Scotland's Liz McColgan, the first woman to finish, breaking the tape at 2:27:21. Of course, a lot of area folks were down there running in the New York City Marathon today. We congratulate those who ran, and especially those who finished.
Who finished, indeed. All right, thanks, Murph.
Yep.
Finally tonight, it appears a Niskayuna doctor who's been forced to work out of his car can take his practice back indoors tomorrow. Dr. William Wells had to use a bit of innovation to treat patients. Town officials denied him a permit to work in his office because of building code problems. Now, some of those problems have reportedly been taken care of, and the Daily Gazette reports Dr. Wells will probably be back inside tomorrow, saved at least for now by a temporary certificate of occupation. I guess that's it for us for this weekend. Wake up with Elisa Streeter and John Garaldi tomorrow morning for Eye Opener at 6:30. And for all of you Wheel of Fortune fans, don't forget tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, Jim Brennan begins his special two-part series, Behind the Wheel. It's what you don't see of Wheel of Fortune while you're watching at home. Have a good evening. We'll see you later. Good night.
Tonight's 10 Eyewitness News is brought to you by Marine Midland Bank. Let's work it out together.
This Newsline at 462 WTEN.